I used to think a cruise was the ultimate getaway. Sun, sea, endless food, what could go wrong? Well, I learned the hard way that you should never, ever go on a cruise with your coworkers. The memory of what happened to my boss's son still sends shivers down my spine. And it's a story I have to share. It all started when I was working for a small, tight knit tech company. My boss, a really great guy named Mark, was like family to us. One day, he came up with this amazing idea, a 5-day Caribbean cruise for his family, and he generously invited me to join them. I was thrilled. A free luxury vacation? Who could say no? I packed my bags, imagining poolside cocktails and beautiful sunsets. For the first few days, it was exactly that, a dream. The weather was perfect, the ship was magnificent, and Mark's family was incredibly welcoming. His teenage son, Alex, was a bright, funny kid, and we all got along great. Everything was idyllic, almost too good to be true. And then it was. The third night is when the dream turned into a living nightmare. We'd all had dinner together, and Alex mentioned he was going to the arcade. An hour later, Mark's wife, Sarah, started to get worried. He wasn't answering his phone. At first, we just thought he was a typical teenager who'd lost track of time. But as another hour passed, a cold sense of dread began to creep in. We started searching. We split up, combing every inch of that massive ship. We checked the pool decks, the restaurants, the lounges, every public space we could think of. We called his name until our voices were hoarse. The ship's festive atmosphere suddenly felt menacing, the cheerful music mocking our growing panic. Hours turned into a frantic, heart-pounding search. The crew was alerted and security began a ship-wide lockdown. It was chaos. I decided to check the lower decks, where the unused cabins and service hallways were. It was dark and eerily quiet down there, a stark contrast to the lively decks above. My footsteps echoed in the narrow corridors. That's when I saw it, a cabin door slightly ajar, one that should have been locked. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I pushed it open and peered into the darkness. There in the corner was a figure. It was Alex. He was tied to a chair, a gag stuffed in his mouth, his eyes wide with terror. I rushed over and untied him, my hands shaking so badly I could barely manage the knots. The moment the gag was off, he started sobbing, clinging to me. He whispered, his voice trembling, that a man had grabbed him, a man dressed all in black. This man had dragged him into the dark cabin, tied him up, and threatened him. He told Alex that if he made a sound or told anyone who he was, he would go after his family next. The threat was terrifyingly real. I got Alex out of there and we ran to find his parents and security. The relief on their faces when they saw him was overwhelming, but it was immediately replaced by rage and confusion. Who would do this? Why? The ship's security team took this incredibly seriously. They escorted us to the security office to review the surveillance footage. We all gathered around the monitors, our eyes glued to the screen, watching the playback from the hallway near the arcade. We saw Alex walking, and then a figure stepped out from a doorway. The man was wearing a dark hoodie and a cap, his face obscured. But as he turned slightly, just for a second, the light caught his profile. My blood ran cold. I knew that face. It wasn't a stranger. It was one of our co-workers, a guy named David from the sales department. He wasn't even supposed to be on the cruise. It turned out David had been quietly fired a month before the trip over a major dispute with my boss. He felt Mark had ruined his career and had been stewing in resentment ever since. He'd found out about the cruise and booked a ticket on the same ship, planning his revenge. He wanted to terrorize my boss by going after the person he loved most, his son. It was a calculated, cold-blooded act of vengeance. The discovery shattered our sense of safety. The rest of the trip was a blur of police interviews and legal proceedings. The beautiful ship had become a floating prison, a constant reminder of the horror we'd experienced. Even after we got back to shore and David was arrested, the nightmare wasn't over for me. I couldn't shake the image of Alex tied up in that dark room, or the chilling realization that someone I saw every day at work was capable of such evil. I quit my job shortly after. I couldn't face going back to that office. To this day, I can't hear the sound of waves without feeling a knot of fear in my stomach. That trip taught me a terrifying lesson. You never truly know the people you work with. And me, I will never ever set foot on a cruise ship again. Thanks for listening to my story. If you found this compelling, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. Have you ever had a moment that felt like it was straight out of a movie? A moment that, looking back, you realize could have changed the entire course of your life. I have, and it happened on a giant cruise ship in the middle of the ocean when I was just 13 years old. My family and I were on this incredible trip to Antarctica. It was the biggest adventure of my life. The ship was like a floating city, full of lights, music, and people. But for a restless teenager like me, the real mystery was what happened after everyone went to sleep. So one night, around 2 in the morning, when I just couldn't get to sleep, I decided to do some exploring. I tiptoed out of our cabin, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and... The ship was a totally different world at that hour. The long hallways were empty and eerily quiet, with only the low hum of the engines for company. I walked past the closed shops, the dark casino, and the deserted swimming pool deck, where the moonlight reflected off the still water. It felt like I had the whole entire world to myself. And that's when I met him. His name was Robert. He was sitting on a deck chair, just staring out at the dark, endless ocean. He looked a bit older than me, maybe 16 or 17, and he had this easy, confident smile. I was a little nervous, but he seemed friendly. He asked what I was doing up so late, and we started talking. It was nice, just two people awake in a sleeping world. We decided to walk together, exploring the silent decks. Robert knew his way around. He showed me all these little hidden spots I'd never seen during the day. He was telling me stories about his travels, and I was completely captivated. He just seemed so cool, so experienced. But then, as we rounded a corner into another empty corridor, the tone of our conversation shifted. He leaned in a little closer, and his friendly smile turned into something more like a smirk. He started telling me how he entertained himself on these long cruises. He bragged about how easy it was to pick the simple locks on the cabin doors. He told me with a strange glint in his eye how he would sneak into people's rooms while they were at dinner or watching a show. He wasn't stealing because he needed the money. He said he did it for the thrill, the fun of it. My blood ran cold. This wasn't some cool, adventurous guy. This was something else entirely. Before I could even process what he was telling me, he looked right at me, that same chilling smile on his face, and said, "I could teach you. We'd make a great team. We'd never get caught." In that moment, everything felt like it was in slow motion. The low hum of the ship suddenly sounded deafening. My stomach twisted into a knot. Here was this choice, this dark path, being offered to me like a piece of candy. Part of me, the stupid, thrill-seeking 13-year-old part, felt a tiny flicker of curiosity. But the rest of me was screaming. I managed to stammer out some lame excuse, something about my parents probably waking up and worrying. I didn't wait for his reply. I just turned and ran. I didn't stop running until I was safely back in my cabin, my heart hammering against my ribs. I locked the door and slid down against it, trying to catch my breath. I didn't sleep a wink for the rest of that night. For the next few days, I avoided him like the plague. Every time I saw a guy with his hairstyle or build, my stomach would drop. Then, a couple of days before the cruise ended, the rumors started flying. People were whispering about a thief. Apparently, someone had been arrested for stealing a very expensive gold watch from one of the first-class suites. It was Robert. They caught him. Hearing that news was a strange mix of relief and terror. It made everything so real. That night, lying in my bunk, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I realized how incredibly close I had come to making a life-altering mistake. If I had said yes, if I had been tempted by that dark thrill, I wouldn't just have lost my innocence. I could have been arrested right alongside him. My whole future could have vanished, all for a few moments of stupid, reckless. That night at sea taught me a powerful lesson. sometimes the biggest dangers don't come with warning signs. They come with a friendly smile. And the most important decision you can ever make is knowing when to walk away. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a moment that changed everything for you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there. I've always loved the sea. The endless blue, the sound of waves crashing against the hull, it's always been my happy place. But that changed last year. I was traveling alone on a cruise to visit my family on a distant island. It was a long journey, and I was looking forward to the rest and relaxation. The first night was peaceful. I watched the sunset from my balcony, had a quiet dinner, and went to bed early, lulled to sleep by the gentle rocking of the ship. Everything felt perfect, too perfect. The second night was when the nightmare began. I woke up suddenly, though I wasn't sure what had disturbed me. The room was dark, silent except for the low hum of the ship's engine. I checked the time on my phone. It was exactly 3 o'clock. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I heard a soft, hesitant knock on my cabin door. Tap, dot, 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 tap, dot, 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 tap. 3 distinct, gentle taps. My heart started to pound. Who would be knocking at this hour? I figured it must be a crew member with some late-night information, or maybe a fellow passenger who got the wrong room. I got out of bed, my feet cold on the floor, and cautiously approached the door. I peered through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was completely empty, dimly lit by the emergency lights. A long, silent corridor stretched out in both directions. There was no one there. A shiver ran down my spine. I thought maybe I had imagined it, a dream that felt too real. Shaking my head, I double-checked the deadbolt, making sure the door was securely locked. I crawled back into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin. I told myself it was just the strange sounds a large ship makes at sea, my mind playing tricks on me in the middle of the night. I tried to fall back asleep, but an unsettling feeling washed over me. It was a strange, prickly sensation, like static electricity in the air, the feeling of being watched. My eyes darted around the dark cabin, trying to make out shapes in the shadows. The closet, the armchair, the curtains swaying slightly with the ship's movement. Then my gaze fell upon the corner of the room, near the balcony door. My breath caught in my throat. Standing there, shrouded in the deep shadows, was the silhouette of a man. He was tall and unnaturally still. I couldn't make out his face clearly, but I could feel his presence, a cold spot in the room. He wasn't moving, wasn't making a sound. He was just standing there, watching me. I froze, my body paralyzed with a primal fear I had never known. Time seemed to stop. My mind raced, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. Had someone broken in? How was that even possible? I slowly reached for the lamp on my nightstand, my hand trembling. As my fingers found the switch, I flicked it on. The room was flooded with light. The corner was empty. The man was gone. I sat there, breathing heavily, my heart hammering against my ribs. Was I losing my mind? I searched the entire room, under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtains. Nothing. There was nowhere for anyone to hide. But I knew what I saw. It wasn't a dream. Convinced there was an intruder, I scrambled for my phone and called security, my voice shaking as I explained that someone was in my room. 2 guards arrived within minutes. They were thorough, searching every inch of my cabin and the balcony. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no one hiding. They looked at me with a mixture of concern and skepticism, suggesting I was probably just having a vivid nightmare. They offered to have someone stay outside my door for the rest of the night, but I was too rattled. I couldn't stay in that room for another second. I spent the rest of the night in one of the 24-hour lounges, wrapped in a blanket, unable to close my eyes. The next morning, I was exhausted but determined to get answers. I spoke to a senior crew member, an older woman who had worked on the ship for decades. I told her my story, expecting her to dismiss it like the security guards did. Instead, her face grew pale. She hesitated, then leaned in closer and spoke in a hushed tone. She told me a story about the very cabin I was staying in. Years ago, a man traveling alone had passed away in that room. He was found in the morning, having died peacefully in his sleep. Or so they thought. Since his death, Strange things had been reported in that specific cabin. Guests would complain about hearing soft knocking on their door late at night. Some reported an inexplicable coldness in the room, while others felt a constant, unnerving feeling of being watched. A few, she said, had even claimed to see a tall, shadowy figure standing silently in the corner. The same corner where I saw him. The crew had learned to just listen and offer a room change, never confirming the story. It was the ship's dark secret. The rest of the cruise was a blur. They moved me to a different cabin on a different deck, but it didn't help. I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the ship, every shadow in the corner of my eye sent a jolt of panic through me. I spent my days on the open deck, surrounded by people, avoiding being alone. But I could never shake the feeling that he was still there, just out of sight. Even now, months later, I'm haunted by what I saw. I still can't forget the image of that silent figure in the dark and the chilling emptiness where his eyes should have been. Sometimes late at night, when my house is quiet and I'm about to fall asleep, I feel it again, that cold, watchful presence. And when I close my eyes, I see him standing in the corner, staring. Always staring. If you ever find yourself on a cruise and you hear a soft knock on your cabin door at 3 in the morning, whatever you do, don't open it. Thank you for listening. If you have any similar stories, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. Stay safe, and don't forget to subscribe for more strange tailies.